My 10-year marriage was no love story. It was a cold, decade-long spy trap. As a top tenured geology professor, my research maps the nation's most classified, billion-dollar strategic rare earth reserves. For 10 years, I loved and trusted blindly, unaware my wife Clara and her entire family faked every ounce of warmth. They groomed me patiently, waiting for me to climb to academic prominence and unlock top-secret national resource intelligence. The second I earned full classified access with my tenure promotion, they discarded me without mercy. A cold December divorce, zero remorse, only the triumph of treasonous thieves who'd pulled off the perfect heist. No more grief. Only awakening. They used my devotion, stole my research, betrayed the nation for profit. From today on, I will crush the Bennett family's criminal empire, expose all their espionage schemes, and make every traitor pay in full. The December wind cut sharp, bitter, and unforgiving across the wide concrete plaza of the Civil Affairs Bureau, slicing straight through the thick wool of my winter coat and sinking icy, relentless fingers deep into my bones. It was not the surface cold of a passing winter gust, but the slow, penetrating chill that seeped past skin and muscle to settle deep in the marrow, cold and unrelenting in its hold, perfectly matching the hollow, numbing emptiness that had settled heavy in my chest weeks before the final divorce proceedings. I stood completely motionless on the bottom stone step of the government building, my fingers loosely curled around the thin, maroon-covered booklet resting in my palms, the official divorce certificate that legally, permanently erased 10 full years of my shared life, my love, and my quiet devotion. The small booklet felt absurdly, impossibly light in my outstretched hands. Far too light to account for 10 years of quiet shared mornings over steaming coffee, soft quiet dinners after long workdays, late-night heartfelt conversations stretching into midnight, tearful and heartfelt field trip goodbyes before months of distant work, and the steady, unwavering quiet devotion I'd poured into my marriage every single day. It was far too light to encapsulate a decade of waking up beside the same person each dawn, of building a stable, peaceful life together brick by brick, small compromise by small compromise, unshakable trust by unshakable trust. A single printed slip of official government paper, stamped with a simple red seal and signed in black ink, had undone every single precious moment, every shared memory, every promise we'd ever made to each other. 3 slow paces to my left, Clara Bennett stood with her back half-turned toward me, her head tilted slightly upward as she murmured quietly into her smartphone, her tone low and confidential. Her voice remained exactly the same soft, honeyed, melodic tone I'd fallen completely in love with 10 years prior, warm, soothing, endlessly gentle, laced with a quiet warmth that had always made me feel truly seen, deeply understood, and unconditionally cherished. Once upon a time, that familiar voice had been my only safe harbor after months spent alone in remote, desolate mountain field sites and barren, sun-scorched desert basins, my only comfort after endless grueling days of physical labor and mental exhaustion. Now, every sweet syllable that had once brought me peace felt like a sharp, deliberate blade, cold and precise, cutting clean through the last fragile remnants of my misplaced devotion and long-held affection. "It's all finished," she said smoothly, her tone perfectly even, no tremor of emotion, no hesitant pause, no trace of sorrow, regret, or lingering guilt. 7 tonight, our usual spot. Yes, bring Dad and my brother along. She ended the call in one single fluid, practiced motion, slipped her phone seamlessly into the side pocket of her cream-colored winter windbreaker, and slowly turned to face me fully. I knew every single version of Clara's face, every subtle shift of her expression, every faint micro-emotion that crossed her features. I knew the soft, sleepy curve of her jaw and the gentle haze in her eyes when she woke at dawn early just to prepare me breakfast before my long days in the university lab. I knew the sharp, focused, meticulous glint in her dark eyes when she pored over her microbiology slides for hours, dedicated and precise in her own academic research. I knew the flushed, tired, tender smile she'd worn countless times after trekking through scorching midday desert heat just to bring me cold water and snacks during my grueling fieldwork, pretending utter exhaustion just to stay close to me and linger by my side. I knew every happy, tender, vulnerable, loving expression she'd ever offered me over the entire course of our 10-year marriage. But the woman standing before me in that moment was a complete, unrecognizable stranger. Her gaze was cold, crystal clear, and entirely unburdened by any trace of grief or remorse. There was no sadness for the life we'd shared, no regret for the love we'd lost, no lingering fondness for the man she'd spent a decade married to, only the quiet, unmistakable relief of a heavy weight finally lifted from her shoulders, and the calm, quiet satisfaction of a long, arduous job finally perfectly completed. Worse than her empty indifference was the faint, detached, clinical scrutiny lingering in her dark eyes, the cold, unemotional stare of a trained scientist examining a discarded, useless specimen, methodically cataloging my final broken state with zero humanity, zero empathy, zero compassion. "Ethan Carter," she said formally, using my full legal name for the first time in years, stripping away every soft pet name, every intimate nickname, every tender term of endearment we'd shared throughout our marriage. "The house stays with you. I'll take the car. Your research grants and personal salary savings have always been modest and unstable, so we'll keep asset division simple and straightforward. Everything legally registered under your name remains fully yours, and everything registered under mine stays mine. All official terms are outlined clearly and legally in the settlement paperwork you signed moments ago." She paused for exactly half a second, a faint, icy, empty smile tugging coldly at the corner of her lips, a hollow smile that never once reached her cold, unfeeling eyes. "One final rule to abide by. Moving forward, you will handle all your lab work, academic research, and professional affairs entirely independently from today forward. Do not attempt to contact me for any reason whatsoever, professional or personal, now or in the future." She did not wait for my reply, did not give me a single chance to speak, to argue, to question, or to voice any of the thousands of confused, burning questions swirling violently in my mind. She simply turned on her heel in one sharp, deliberate movement, her cream windbreaker fluttering sharply in the frigid winter gusts sweeping across the plaza, and walked away without a single backward glance. The crisp, steady, rhythmic click of her high heels on the hard concrete pavement echoed loudly across the empty, quiet plaza, forming a final, unyielding soundtrack to the brutal, sudden end of my entire marriage. I stood completely rooted to the cold stone ground, my eyes fixed rigidly on her retreating figure as she walked toward the distant parking lot. I watched her white sedan pull smoothly out of the parking space, merge seamlessly into the thick, bustling stream of city traffic, and shrink smaller and smaller with every passing second until it vanished entirely into the thick gray winter haze hanging low over the entire city skyline. She was truly, finally gone. A full decade of marriage, 10 years of devoted love, unwavering trust, and mutual sacrifice had collapsed completely in the span of barely 20 minutes and 2 simple signatures on a legal document. Any ordinary person would have crumbled entirely under the weight of such sudden, brutal loss. Any ordinary person would have been overwhelmed by crippling grief, burning rage, and desperate confusion at the abrupt, devastating end of a life built carefully and lovingly together. They would linger on memories, wallow in regret, or spiral into self-doubt, replaying every tender moment to question where it all went wrong. But in that moment, I felt nothing but a strange, hollow, pervasive calm, a quiet, icy clarity that settled deep into my bones, cutting through every ounce of lingering confusion and misplaced emotion. All the soft illusions I'd clung to for a decade, all the gentle excuses I'd made for Clara's strangeness, all the blind optimism that had blinded me to endless red flags, shattered completely in the cold winter wind. There was no sadness, no heartache, no reluctant nostalgia. Only the sharp, clean burn of awakening and a cold, unshakable resolve taking root in my chest. I was not heartbroken. I was finally, fully waking up. My name is Ethan Carter, 36 years old, tenured professor of geology and geochemistry at one of the most prestigious, top-tier research universities in the entire nation. I had earned my full tenured professorship exactly 1 month before filing for divorce, a lifelong milestone I had spent 15 grueling, unrelenting years grinding tirelessly toward, countless grueling field expeditions across harsh terrains, endless sleepless lab nights spent analyzing data, thousands of pages of meticulous research analysis, and countless lonely, isolated months away from home and any sense of personal comfort. When my official promotion letter finally arrived in my campus mailbox, Clara had gone out of her way to cook an elaborate, lavish three-course dinner, poured an expensive bottle of aged red wine, and toasted my hard-earned success with bright, sparkling, proud eyes. She'd gushed endlessly about how tirelessly I'd worked, how undeniably deserving I was of the prestigious promotion, and how incredibly proud she was to be my wife and partner. At the time, I had been deeply touched, endlessly grateful, and thoroughly convinced that I had found a rare, genuine partner who truly celebrated every one of my hard-won victories and supported every aspect of my academic career. Now, staring back on that night with clear, unclouded eyes, I knew the unvarnished truth. She had not been celebrating me, nor my years of grueling effort. She had simply been waiting, patiently, strategically waiting, for me to climb high enough to serve her family's hidden agenda. A full-tenured professorship at my university granted unlimited access to top-tier national research projects, multi-million-dollar government research grants, and highly classified geological data pertaining to the nation's most vital, strategic rare earth and metal mineral reserves. It granted unrestricted clearance to state-level resource intelligence and confidential geological mapping archives, the exact priceless intelligence her family had spent an entire decade meticulously manipulating me, grooming me, and spying on me to obtain. My exclusive academic specialty was ore deposit geology and high-precision geochemical analysis, focused entirely on rare earth element formation mechanisms, deep-sea mineral distribution patterns, and high-value strategic resource exploration across domestic and territorial waters. My life's work had never existed merely to fill academic journals or earn institutional praise. My research mapped the nation's most vital, hidden underground natural treasures, laying the critical foundational framework for national resource security, large-scale industrial development, and core economic defense strategies for the entire country. It was quiet, unglamorous, grueling work that few people fully understood or appreciated, but it was work that rendered me uniquely invaluable to the nation's security, and equally invaluable to the foreign criminal entities determined to steal its most precious strategic secrets. I had always been a solitary, reserved man by inherent nature. My days were spent surrounded by rough rock samples and layered sediment cores, precise spectrometers and endless drilling data spreadsheets, not the messy, complicated unpredictability of human relationships and social scheming. I was socially reserved, straightforward, honest to a fault, and utterly unwaveringly trusting of the few people I chose to love and welcome into my life. I poured every ounce of my ambition, passion, and energy into my rigorous academic research, leaving me completely blind to the calculated human scheming unfolding quietly right beside me, inside my own home, within my own marriage bed. For 10 full years. Clara and I had first met 10 years prior, at a high-level interdisciplinary national academic conference hosted by the country's top scientific research academy. At the time, she was a rising, promising young microbiology researcher, her academic field seemingly worlds apart from my specialized geological work. The conference's core theme, however, centered entirely on extreme environment life forms and mineral correlation research, focusing on deep-sea microbial ecosystems, high-altitude mineral deposit formation, and extreme climate geological and biological symbiosis, a rare, overlapping academic niche where our otherwise disparate fields of study briefly intersected. On the conference's opening morning, she had approached me deliberately, sat down directly beside me in the crowded lecture hall, turned to me with warm, curious, inviting eyes, and spoken the exact words that would anchor an entire decade of cold, calculated deception and treasonous manipulation. "You study geology? I've always thought people who take the time to understand and talk to the earth are the most romantic people alive in this world. I had been 26 years old then, perpetually dust-streaked and exhausted from constant fieldwork, socially awkward and deeply inexperienced with genuine romantic connection, starved for sincere recognition and authentic human warmth. No one in my entire life had ever taken the time to view my gritty, labor-intensive, isolating geological work as romantic or meaningful. No one had ever bothered to look past the dirt-stained hands, the endless data charts, and the lonely field expeditions to see the quiet passion and dedication driving every part of my career. In that single, vulnerable moment, I had fallen completely, irrevocably for her carefully crafted persona. She would later admit, with feigned softness and manufactured sincerity, that she had attended the entire exclusive academic conference specifically and solely to meet me. She confessed that she had thoroughly researched every one of my published academic papers, studied my full project history and career trajectory, and chosen the seat directly beside me by deliberate, premeditated design. I wanted to meet the brilliant young Dr. Carter everyone in academic circles was buzzing about, she'd whispered softly, her smile warm and perfectly crafted to appear genuine. "You're even more impressive and thoughtful than I ever imagined." Every sweet word she'd spoken, every gentle gesture she'd offered, every late-night conversation we'd shared, every show of quiet support and understanding had felt utterly real and authentic to me. For 10 full years, I had wholeheartedly believed I had married a kind, intelligent, devoted woman who loved me genuinely for my mind, my professional passion, and my quiet, unwavering dedication to my work. For 10 full years, I had been catastrophically wrong. Every moment of our innocent-seeming courtship, every peaceful year of our marriage, every display of tender affection and spousal support had been nothing more than a rehearsed, flawless performance. A meticulously scripted stage play written entirely by her family to gain my complete, unwavering trust and systematically harvest my most confidential, high-value academic research. When we first married, I had owned no house, no car, and no substantial personal savings, only my relentless academic drive and unproven professional potential. Clara never once complained about our modest lifestyle, never pressured me for material wealth or status. Her father, Arthur Bennett, the secretive owner of a private high-end biotechnology firm, had welcomed me into their family with open, seemingly generous arms, publicly dismissing material wealth as trivial and unimportant. Young people build their futures with hard work and ambition, not empty money and possessions, he'd proclaimed warmly at our wedding reception, smiling widely. We value genuine character and dedication above all else in this family. Her younger brother, Leo Bennett, had clapped me firmly on the shoulder, toasted our marriage loudly in front of all our guests, and enthusiastically declared me official family. For 10 full years, they'd treated me with consistent kindness, generous hospitality, and warm familial camaraderie. I had believed every single ounce of their apparent sincerity. I had truly thought I'd married into a loving, supportive, wholesome family that valued me for who I was. I had genuinely believed I was incredibly lucky. Luck had never played any part in our relationship. It had all been cold, precise calculation. It had been intentional, long-term infiltration. It had been high-level professional espionage masterfully disguised as ordinary, peaceful domestic bliss. Professor Carter. A familiar, steady, grounded voice cut sharply through the tangled, haunting web of my swirling memories, yanking me harshly back to the bitter, frigid winter present. I lifted my head slowly to see Mason Brooks stepping out of a sleek black sedan parked neatly at the curb, his tall, broad frame sharp, composed, and immaculate in a tailored dark winter coat. Mason had been my college roommate, my closest, most trusted friend for nearly 20 full years. While I had buried myself entirely in rigorous geology studies and relentless academic research, slowly climbing the grueling university ranks to tenured professorship, he had built a formidable reputation as one of the most respected criminal defense attorneys in the entire city, specializing exclusively in high-stakes financial litigation and sensitive national security legal cases. 15 days prior to that cold December morning, I had called him in the dead of night, completely shaken and emotionally reeling. Moments after uncovering a hidden old hard drive that had single-handedly unraveled my entire 10-year marriage and shattered every belief I'd held about my life. I had spilled every bizarre, horrifying, damning detail of what I'd discovered, every suspicious recurring pattern I'd ignored for years, every hidden secret conversation, every stolen piece of research and confidential data. After listening to my entire frantic, hour-long confession in grave, unbroken silence, Mason had given me one single, clear, unyielding order that would become my guiding rule for the next 2 weeks. Stay completely calm. Do not confront Clara under any circumstances. Do not let her suspect a single thing about what you found. Lay low, act normal, and let me handle the full investigation. I had obeyed his instructions perfectly, without deviation. For 14 long days, I had meticulously played the part of a defeated, overstressed university professor teetering under the crushing weight of overwhelming professional pressure. I had feigned genuine anxiety over potential lost grant funding, pretended deep uncertainty about the future of my core research projects, and acted exactly like an ordinary man slowly unraveling under the stress of adult responsibility and career pressure. I had carefully allowed Clara to believe she was watching me crumble slowly without her supposed support and companionship. I'm genuinely worried the university is going to pull funding for my core research project. I'd mumbled tiredly over a quiet weeknight dinner, my voice soft and defeated, perfectly selling my fabricated despair. I might lose everything I've spent years working to build. Clara had immediately reached across the wooden dining table, brushed her fingers gently over my knuckles, and offered soft, soothing, comforting words to ease my apparent stress. But in the split second right after her warm, sympathetic smile faded from her face, I had caught it, a fleeting but unmistakable flash of cold, contemptuous satisfaction in her dark eyes, fast enough that any ordinary, trusting person would have completely missed it. She had not been comforting me in my supposed distress. She had been quietly celebrating the successful completion of her long-planned victory over me. Exactly 1 week later, she had delivered her fully rehearsed, perfectly polished divorce ultimatum without warning or hesitation. We're fundamentally incompatible, Ethan. I've been lonely and unfulfilled for 10 entire years. You're always away in the field or locked away in the lab, and I can't keep living this empty, solitary life any longer. It's not your fault. It's just the unfortunate reality of our lives together. She'd shed perfectly timed, manufactured tears, her voice trembling with fake exhaustion and feigned heartache, before sliding a fully finalized, legally airtight divorce agreement across the table before I could process a single word of her carefully crafted speech. The legal terms of the divorce were deceptively fair and reasonable on the surface, designed to lull me into blind compliance. My premarital family house remained fully mine. Her personal vehicle stayed registered solely in her name. All personal assets were split strictly according to legal ownership records, with no overlap or dispute. She had explained every term casually, confidently, and efficiently, as if she were discussing a routine administrative task rather than the end of our decade-long marriage. You don't have much stable personal savings outside your fluctuating research grant funds, she'd explained calmly. My personal income comes from my academic salary and my dad's company dividends, so we'll keep all assets separate to avoid unnecessary legal hassle. I had believed every single word without a shred of doubt. For 10 years, I had fully trusted her to manage all my personal financial paperwork, my grant reimbursement filings, my research expense reports, and our shared household finances. I had never once suspected that behind my back, she had been systematically, quietly robbing me blind for years, siphoning my hard-earned income and research funds into her family's hidden criminal accounts. Mason stepped forward to stand directly in front of me, his expression grave, businesslike, and completely stripped of our usual casual friendship. Preliminary forensic financial auditing is fully complete, he stated without any preamble, his tone sharp and authoritative. Clara and the entire Bennett family have illegally diverted approximately $1.68 million from your personal savings, academic royalty payments, and official research grant accounts over the past 3 consecutive years. My chest tightened sharply at the confirmation, but I did not flinch or react outwardly. I had already guessed the rough scale of the theft in the days after finding the hard drive, the fragmented financial records and chat logs giving me a clear outline of their criminal exploitation of my funds. But there is a critical, complicating problem we cannot overlook, Mason continued firmly, his jaw tightening with restrained frustration. Every single stolen dollar has been meticulously laundered through two-layered domestic shell companies before being wired to untraceable offshore accounts. The entire stolen sum is completely untraceable through standard civil legal channels. Domestic courts hold zero jurisdiction over these foreign offshore holding accounts. Untraceable, I repeated flatly, the single word tasting like bitter ash on my tongue, heavy and hollow in my mouth. For standard civil asset recovery efforts, yes, Mason confirmed solemnly. But stolen money is by far the smallest, most insignificant part of this entire case. Ethan, this is not just simple divorce fraud or petty financial theft. This is high-level industrial espionage. This is state-level national intelligence leakage with irreversible national security consequences. He glanced quickly around the bustling public plaza around us, where oblivious young couples laughed and took wedding photos, where families wandered casually through the open square, completely unaware of the high-stakes national security conspiracy unfolding mere feet away from them. We cannot discuss classified details openly here. Get in the car quickly. We both climbed silently into his fully insulated sedan, the harsh winter wind completely muffled by the car's thick tinted window panels. The car's built-in heater hummed softly and steadily, filling the enclosed cabin with warm air that did absolutely nothing to thaw the cold, heavy dread settling deep in my bones. Clara's official public profession is microbiology research, Mason began, laying out his full compiled investigative findings in precise, chronological order. Arthur's biotechnology firm is legally registered as a civilian microbial research and commercial product sales company. On paper, they operate as a small, low-profit independent startup with zero professional industry overlap with mineral exploration, geological surveying, or strategic resource analysis of any kind. He pulled a thick stack of printed official corporate documents from his leather briefcase, spreading them neatly across the car's dashboard for me to examine closely. But exactly 3 years ago, they formally expanded their licensed business scope to include deep-sea mineral technical consulting services. 2 full years ago, they secured a highly lucrative private consulting contract with an offshore mining conglomerate named StarSource Mining International, legally based in Hong Kong with its core operational and intelligence offices located in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. My blood ran instantly cold in my veins. Kuala Lumpur. I knew that exact location well. I had seen it repeatedly referenced, scrawled in coded notes and typed explicitly in the years of hidden chat screenshots I'd uncovered on the forgotten hard drive. Your classified deep-sea rare earth mineral distribution research report was officially finalized and submitted to National Security Archives in July of last year, Mason said firmly, his tone sharp and unwavering. That is the exact same month Arthur's biotech firm signed their high-value offshore consulting contract with StarSource Mining, a civilian microbiology company with zero professional geological training, zero mineral exploration experience, and zero industry qualifications suddenly securing multi-million-dollar deep-sea mineral consulting work? It is logistically and professionally impossible unless they possessed exclusive insider classified data to sell to their foreign buyers. I stared numbly at the printed contract papers spread before me, every typed word burning sharply into my vision as the full, horrifying scale of the decade-long deception unfolded completely in my mind. She married me solely for my research data, I said hoarsely, my voice barely audible in the quiet cabin. Not for money. Not for companionship. Not for any form of love. She married me exclusively for my classified national resource research and state-level geological intelligence. Precisely, Mason nodded gravely, confirming my worst fears. Rare earth elements are irreplaceable, non-negotiable strategic national resources. They power all modern military technology, advanced industrial manufacturing, renewable energy infrastructure, and global economic and industrial dominance. Foreign mining conglomerates and intelligence groups have spent decades attempting to infiltrate domestic geological research institutions, specifically to steal confidential National Reserve data. Your one-of-a-kind specialized expertise in rare earth deposit mapping and deep-sea resource surveying makes you one of the highest-value intelligence targets in the entire national academic system. You were the perfect, unassuming mark for their operation, he continued quietly, his tone heavy with the weight of the revelation. Dedicated to your craft, inherently trusting by nature, socially reserved and unassuming, entirely focused on your research with zero political awareness or suspicion of personal betrayal. They spent 10 full years meticulously grooming you, studying your every habit and vulnerability, earning your absolute, unshakable trust, waiting patiently for you to climb high enough in your academic career to gain access to top-secret classified national data. I leaned back against the car seat, my gaze fixed on the blurred city lights outside the window, every word sinking deep and carving the brutal truth further into my mind. I finally understood why Clara had never once complained about my endless field trips, my all-nighters in the lab, my neglect of trivial domestic trivialities and social gatherings. While other spouses grew bitter and lonely from prolonged separation and emotional distance, she'd welcomed my absence. Every time I left for remote field expeditions, every time I buried myself in confidential data analysis, every time I prioritized national research projects over family time, she gained more unmonitored access to my documents, my lab accounts, my research drafts, and my private work files. My dedication to my career, my greatest professional pride, had been their most convenient tool of espionage all along. I'd spent years guarding national resource security from external threats, completely oblivious that the most dangerous traitor had been sleeping beside me every single night. That night, I returned to my quiet, empty apartment for the first time officially since filing for divorce. Every single corner of the familiar living space was tainted with false memories and fabricated affection. The soft fabric sofa where we'd watched movies on rainy, lazy nights, the home kitchen where she'd cooked all my favorite meals, the dimly lit study where I'd worked late into the night while she pretended to keep me company, every surface, every object, every quiet corner was permanently stained by her decade-long lies and calculated deception. I locked the front door securely behind me, turned off every light in the apartment until the entire space was submerged in complete darkness, and spread my full archive of years-long research files, project records, and grant documents across my wooden study desk. For 6 consecutive, unbroken hours, I cross-referenced every major research milestone of my professional career with the Bennett family's financial transaction records, corporate license updates, and offshore contract signing dates. The resulting pattern was undeniable, unbroken, terrifyingly precise in its deliberate timing. Barely days after I completed my landmark Bion-Obio rare earth deposit deep formation research, a $630,000 fully funded national government grant project, Clara submitted falsified equipment purchase invoices to university administration to siphon $280,000 in official grant funds directly into her family's hidden shell company accounts. Mere weeks after I finalized my comprehensive Southwest Sanjiang rare metal mineral survey, Arthur officially updated his company's business license to add mineral consulting services to their operational scope. Within literal hours after I uploaded the final classified draft of my deep-sea sediment resource research to the university's highest security server, the Star Source Mining offshore consulting contract was officially finalized overseas. There were no coincidences, no accidental overlaps, no random timing errors. There was only 10 full years of patient, systematic, ruthless exploitation of my work, my trust, and my national research access. At exactly 2 o'clock in the morning, I retrieved the forgotten hidden hard drive that had single-handedly shattered my entire world. It was a worn, yellowed 500 gigabytes portable drive clearly labeled 2015 to 2018 backup, buried deep underneath stacks of old conference papers, faded field photos, and outdated research printouts in a dusty storage box I had not touched in multiple years. I had only intended to sort through and clear out obsolete old files to tidy my study. Instead, I had uncovered hundreds of hidden, unsuspected chat screenshots between Clara and her father Arthur, dating all the way back to 2019, 6 full consecutive years of secret plotting, criminal planning, and treasonous discussion I had never once suspected existed. I reread every single one of the damning messages late into the night, every cold, calculating, unfeeling line searing itself permanently into my memory. Father, his biennial data analysis is nearly complete. We can begin diverting grant funds legally once the project is officially filed and approved by the university. Memorize every deep-sea mineral parameter thoroughly and precisely. The Kuala Lumpur buyer is raising their bid for full raw research datasets with complete coordinate data. No errors are permitted in data transcription. One single flawed data point will ruin the entire overseas deal and cost our family millions in profit. I had never saved these screenshots myself. I had never known they existed. Clara had secretly recorded and archived every single one of her treasonous conversations with her father over the years, storing them on this hidden backup drive that she had carelessly forgotten to dispose of after years of use. It was the only mistake, the only oversight, in her entire decade of perfect, flawless deception. In that quiet, dark midnight moment, my marriage died completely and irreversibly. It did not end at the Civil Affairs Bureau that morning, nor with the signed divorce papers. It ended alone in my dark study, staring at irrefutable, concrete proof that every loving word, every gentle touch, every intimate moment, every display of affection we had shared for 10 years had been nothing but a cold, calculated lie. Crushing shock and burning rage crashed over me in brutal, suffocating waves, threatening to overwhelm my rational mind, but years of rigorous wilderness field training kicked in instantly. I had survived brutal mountain blizzards, sudden flash floods, remote wilderness emergencies, and life-threatening field disasters alone. Panic kills out in the wild. Only calm, methodical action ensures survival. I moved slowly, deliberately, and methodically, copying every damning screenshot to an encrypted private USB drive, then hiding the small device deep inside the hollow spine of a thick, heavy geology textbook on the highest shelf of my study. An obscure spot Clara would never think to check or discover. I erased all computer browsing history and file access logs, smoothed my tense, rigid shoulders to mask my inner turmoil, and walked calmly back into the living room to find Clara curled casually on the sofa, bathed in soft winter lamplight, scrolling her phone leisurely like the perfect, innocent, devoted wife she had spent a decade pretending to be. "Finished sorting through all your old study things?" she asked casually, her tone warm and unbothered, flashing that familiar soft smile that had fooled me completely for 10 long years. "Yep," I replied simply, my voice perfectly steady and neutral, hiding the violent storm of anger and betrayal raging silently inside me. "What do you want me to make for dinner tonight?" "Anything is fine with me." That night, she cooked my absolute favorite meal, rich, savory tomato beef stew, a dish she knew I loved more than any other. I ate every single bite slowly and mechanically, the delicious food tasting bitter, metallic, and repulsive on my tongue. I forced a small, grateful smile and thanked her warmly, continuing to play the role of the oblivious, appreciative, unsuspecting husband, patiently waiting for her to make her next pre-planned move. Exactly 3 days later, she formally asked for divorce. Now, sitting quietly in Mason's warm sedan, staring blankly out at the glowing nighttime city skyline stretching out before us, I turned to my oldest friend and asked one single, resolute question. "What comes next?" "We head straight to my firm's downtown office," Mason replied immediately, starting the car's engine and pulling smoothly back into traffic. "You're scheduled to meet a senior investigator from the National Science and Technology Security Office. He's been tracking this exact offshore mineral intelligence leak for multiple months, and your hard evidence is the critical key we need to fully take down the entire Bennett criminal operation." Mason's law firm occupied the entire 23rd floor of a sleek modern downtown high-rise, boasting floor-to-ceiling glass windows that offered an unobstructed panoramic view of the entire city skyline. The office space was sleek, minimalist, professional, and clinically sterile, lined with rows of legal textbooks, stacked case files, and framed professional certifications, a world away from my dusty, cluttered university labs and remote rugged field sites. Mason poured me a steaming cup of hot tea from the office refreshment station, gesturing for me to sit comfortably on the leather sofa. "Drink this and steady your nerves. You need complete mental clarity for this upcoming meeting. What you're about to learn and discuss changes the entire trajectory of this case." Only minutes later, the private office door opened quietly, and a sharp-featured man in his early 40s stepped calmly inside. He wore a plain, unmarked gray jacket with no logos or official credentials visible, his facial features calm, sharp, and completely unreadable. The quiet, disciplined, reserved demeanor of a seasoned senior national security investigator. He extended a firm, brisk, professional handshake toward me. "Professor Carter. I'm Fong Wei, senior investigator for National Scientific Research Security." We settled side by side on the office's leather sofa as Agent Fong spread multiple stamped, fully confidential official documents across the central coffee table, bright red security classification seals prominent and unmissable on every single page. "Our agency has been actively monitoring the Bennett family's offshore financial activity for 5 consecutive months." He began without any unnecessary preamble, diving straight into official case details. "Over the past 5 years, Arthur and Clara Bennett have funneled nearly $2 million through 3 separate, untraceable offshore shell entities. Less than a quarter of that total sum originates from your stolen personal savings and misappropriated grant funds. The vast majority of their illegal revenue comes directly from foreign mining interest payments in exchange for your classified geological research data." My breath caught sharply in my throat at the revelation. I had only ever known about the funds stolen directly from my personal accounts and research grants. I had never imagined the massive, far-reaching scale of their full treasonous criminal enterprise. "We have officially confirmed 2 major state secret leakage events directly linked exclusively to your academic research," Agent Fong continued in a grave, authoritative tone. "Your landmark Bayan OBO deep rare earth deposit report and your fully classified offshore deep-sea sediment resource survey have both appeared in internal strategic assessment reports compiled by major foreign mining conglomerates. Every sampling coordinate, every elemental distribution parameter, every geological formation analysis conclusion matches your confidential, unpublished data word for word, number for number exactly. Precise geological sampling coordinates are top-tier classified national intelligence," he emphasized heavily, his tone serious and unyielding. "These exact numerical coordinates allow foreign entities to accurately pinpoint unexploited domestic national mineral reserves, calculate precise resource volume estimates, and evaluate long-term strategic economic and military value. The national security damage inflicted by these leaks is extensive, far-reaching, and in many ways irreversible." I stared numbly at the stamped confidential documents spread before me, my throat tight and dry, a crushing weight of guilt and responsibility settling heavy on my chest. I had dedicated my entire professional career to protecting national resource security, devoting every research project and field expedition to strengthening domestic geological defense and resource protection. Through my own blind trust and their deliberate, long-term manipulation, I had unwittingly become the primary source of catastrophic state secret leakage that threatened national strategic security. I lifted my head slowly to meet Agent Fong's steady gaze, bracing myself for the worst possible outcome. "Agent Fong, what legal liability do I face as the researcher whose confidential classified data was stolen and leaked to foreign entities?" Agent Fong fixed me with a steady, unwavering, impartial gaze. "Legal liability in state secret cases is determined entirely by criminal intent, Professor Carter. You had zero prior knowledge of the ongoing theft and espionage. You did not collude with the Bennett family, you did not profit from their criminal activities, and you did not willingly disclose any classified national information. You are a verified victim of targeted, long-term professional espionage and deliberate personal manipulation. Your academic record, professional conduct, and national security background check are completely impeccable. You bear zero criminal responsibility for their crimes." The profound relief that washed over me was quiet, deep, and genuine, but extremely short-lived. Sharp, heavy guilt immediately rushed in to replace it. I was legally innocent of any wrongdoing, but I had undeniably been foolish and naive. I had trusted too easily, loved too blindly, and overlooked far too many red flags, allowing a decade of calculated deception to compromise critical national security interests. However, we require your full, unwavering cooperation to build an unbreakable, airtight criminal case against the entire Bennett family, Agent Fong continued firmly. We need a complete chronological archive of every research project you have led over the past decade, every classified dataset you have compiled, every lab access record, and every suspicious interaction you have had with any member of the Bennett family during your marriage. I lifted the thick, fully organized binder I had prepared in advance from my bag, setting it neatly on the table. The binder was filled with hand-dated chronological timelines, annotated incident logs, cross-referenced research milestone records, and detailed documentation of every suspicious behavior and unauthorized action I had observed over the years. I have already compiled and organized everything. Every questionable conversation, every unauthorized lab visit, every manipulated research document and financial record is fully dated, annotated, and verified. Agent Fong flipped carefully through the hundreds of printed pages, his neutral professional expression softening slightly with clear approval. This evidence is extraordinarily critical to our case. These notations regarding your Antarctic polar research project are especially damning, documented missing raw field data and verified unauthorized lab access by a forged administrator authorization. I nodded tightly, my jaw clenched with lingering frustration. For full-core sediment datasets from last year's official National Antarctic Polar Expedition were completely and permanently erased from my secure lab server. This data covered uncharted offshore rare earth reserves located within national Antarctic territorial waters, fully classified, never published, never shared with any domestic or foreign third party in any capacity. This official documentation confirms targeted, premeditated theft of cutting-edge polar strategic resource intelligence, Agent Fong stated firmly, closing the evidence binder securely. Our investigative team will conduct formal evidentiary interviews with you in full official capacity later this week. For the time being, your absolute top priority is maximum personal vigilance and safety. The Bennetts are under continuous surveillance, but their high-level foreign backers remain completely unidentified and at large. Now that you are actively cooperating with our national security investigation, you have become a primary target for potential retaliation. After Agent Fong departed the office, the entire room fell into a heavy, oppressive silence as dusk settled over the city, painting the distant skyline in muted shades of deep purple and gray. Am I naive for trusting her so completely for so many years? I asked Mason quietly, voicing the crippling self-doubt that had gnawed at my mind relentlessly since uncovering the truth. Mason shook his head firmly and unwaveringly, his tone resolute and reassuring. You are not naive, Ethan. You lived honestly and fought fairly in your marriage. She fought dirty, with premeditated malice and criminal intent. They studied you relentlessly for 10 full years, your entire personality, your daily work habits, your emotional vulnerabilities, your inherent trust patterns, every quirk and flaw. They built an entirely fake, customized identity perfectly tailored specifically to your needs and preferences to earn your full devotion. This was never a regular romantic relationship that went wrong. This was a cold, professional, long-term intelligence operation targeting an ordinary, honest, hardworking man. No reasonable person could have seen through that level of flawless, decade-long deception. They never actually cared about stealing money at all, I realized slowly, the final pieces of the massive criminal puzzle locking perfectly into place in my mind. The $1.68 million they stole from my accounts was nothing more than petty side profit. Their entire core goal, their sole mission for 10 years, was stealing my classified national research data, leveraging my professional expertise, and exploiting my high-level national project access. Exactly, Mason confirmed without hesitation. Your exclusive geological data is worth hundreds of millions of dollars to foreign resource cartels and international intelligence groups. The financial theft was merely a secondary bonus to their primary espionage mission. And to make matters worse, they have already launched a coordinated campus smear campaign designed to discredit your character and invalidate your critical testimony before the criminal trial. The moment he finished speaking, the gravity of the Bennett family's vicious, calculated retaliation washed over me. They were not just fleeing accountability for their treason, they were actively laying groundwork to reverse the tables, painting me as the incompetent, untrustworthy villain who had compromised national security through my own professional negligence. They knew full well that in academic and official circles, reputation often weighs heavier than unproven evidence. If they could tarnish my credibility, frame me as a reckless researcher with poor security awareness and flawed professional ethics, any testimony and evidence I provided against them would be dismissed as retaliatory slander from a bitter, scorned ex-husband. It was a classic, ruthless cover-up tactic, polished and perfected from years of covert scheming, designed to save their family and bury all their crimes under the shadow of my ruined reputation. Over the next 2 weeks, unsubstantiated rumors exploded rapidly across the entire university faculty and student body, spreading like wildfire through private group chats, office whispers, and casual campus conversations. Anonymous gossip accused me of reckless grant fund management, severe financial misconduct, unprofessional academic negligence, and dangerous, compromised research security. Colleagues who had once publicly praised my rigorous research and academic dedication now avoided me entirely, quick to pass judgment and form negative opinions without knowing a single detail of the decade-long deception and criminal victimization I had endured. Many senior professors distanced themselves from my projects for fear of being implicated in the so-called security scandal, while younger researchers shied away from collaborating with me, terrified of having their own academic futures tainted by the baseless rumors. Even some of my long-term research partners sent tentative messages to inquire about the situation, their once solid trust in my professionalism clearly wavering. Still, I ignored every malicious whisper and false rumor, choosing to focus every ounce of my energy entirely on comprehensive evidence compilation. I knew better than to waste time on trivial public opinion. Truth and hard evidence would ultimately crush all slander, and the more fiercely they tried to destroy me, the harder I would strike back to bury their entire criminal empire. I ignored every malicious whisper and false rumor, choosing to focus every ounce of my energy entirely on comprehensive evidence compilation. I cross-referenced thousands of financial ledger entries, official lab access timestamps, corporate filing records, and witness statement accounts, carefully building a perfect, unassailable chronological timeline of every criminal act committed by the entire Bennett family over 10 years. It was during this critical evidence-gathering phase that Leo Bennett personally called my private cell phone. It was the very first time he had reached out to me in any capacity since the divorce was finalized, his tone artificially warm, casual, and familiar, deliberately feigning the relaxed familial closeness we had supposedly shared for an entire decade. "Hey Ethan, look, I know things ended really rough between you and Clara, and everyone's been stressed out lately with all the fallout," he began smoothly, his voice forced and ingratiating. "But this whole messy situation doesn't need to go any further than it already has. You've got a prestigious tenured professorship, a successful career, and a solid professional reputation to protect. Why ruin everything you've built over a little bit of money and some trivial, meaningless rock research data? Just drop this investigation, walk away with your dignity intact, and let our family move on from all this drama peacefully." I let out a short, bitter, cold laugh at his blatant, ignorant arrogance. "Trivial rock research data, Leo? Are you truly that oblivious? You mean highly classified national strategic resource intelligence? You mean protected state secrets your family has been illegally selling to foreign overseas buyers for years for massive profit?" His fake warmth and casual amiability vanished in an instant, replaced by sharp impatience and thinly veiled hostility. "Don't be so overly dramatic about nothing. It's just basic geological research on random rocks. No one overseas cares about that trivial stuff. It's more than enough to send your father, your sister, and you to federal prison for decades," I replied firmly, my voice steady, unshakable, and unyielding. "This is no longer a simple civil divorce dispute or personal family matter. This is a full federal national security criminal investigation. Every single one of your family's crimes is fully documented, professionally traced, and legally verified beyond any possible doubt." I ended the call abruptly without waiting for his reply or allowing him to argue further. Barely 3 minutes later, Mason sent me an urgent text update with critical case-breaking news. Perfect strategic move. Leo's personal phone line was fully surveilled by national security teams. He immediately called Arthur right after your conversation and explicitly confirmed direct ongoing contact with their Kuala Lumpur-based middleman. "We have just locked in our single biggest evidentiary lead in the entire case. Their desperate, last-minute attempt to intimidate and silence me had inadvertently become the most damning, self-incriminating evidence against their entire criminal operation. As the new spring academic semester officially began, I returned to my university laboratory for the first time since the divorce proceedings concluded. The familiar combination of chemical reagent fumes, fine mineral dust, and polished stone sample scent washed over me instantly, a scent that had once felt like home, the mark of my life's dedicated work, now permanently tainted by the bitter shadow of betrayal and espionage. My doctoral research student Luke Wilson found me alone in my private office shortly after I arrived, his expression hesitant, concerned, and deeply sympathetic. "Professor Carter, I've heard all the terrible rumors circulating over winter break. Are you doing okay through all of this?" "I'm fine," I replied immediately, shifting my mindset firmly back to professional focus and setting aside my personal turmoil. "Update me thoroughly on the progress of the Antarctic sediment sample retesting project." Luke pulled up the full set of revised data charts and analytical reports on his office computer screen, his tone instantly shifting to serious, professional precision. "We have fully retested every single Antarctic sample that was falsely flagged for instrument error last year. All of the supposedly flawed, corrupted raw data is completely valid and geologically accurate, with perfect layer continuity and zero recorded equipment malfunctions or testing errors. The data was deliberately deleted and falsely flagged as corrupted on purpose to cover up intentional tampering and theft." My jaw tightened sharply with quiet, restrained anger. I had suspected Clara's deliberate tampering all along, but the official verified confirmation only solidified the full extent of her calculated criminal actions. She had intentionally erased critical classified national research data and fabricated system errors to hide her treasonous theft for years. "There's more critical information you need to know, sir," Luke continued hesitantly, leaning forward slightly. "Last winter break, while you were still stationed in Antarctica collecting field samples, Clara came into the lab unannounced. She sent grad student Ryan across campus on a completely trivial, unnecessary errand, leaving her entirely alone and unsupervised with the Antarctic Project's main research computer for a full 10 minutes. When Ryan returned to the lab, multiple core data folders for the Polar Project were completely corrupted and unusable. All of us assumed it was a random, unavoidable system glitch at the time. I stood upright immediately, my mind racing with the implications of this new timeline evidence. Pull the exact system modification timestamps for every corrupted folder. Secure the lab's main hard drive immediately and submit it for official national security forensic analysis. Mark the entire drive top priority classified evidence for the criminal case. Within mere hours, our forensic cross-verification confirmed every single corrupted research folder had been altered, overwritten, and partially deleted during those 10 unsupervised minutes Clara had spent alone in the lab. She had seized a perfect, unmonitored window of opportunity to tamper with, destroy, and steal irreplaceable classified polar research data critical to national security. I immediately implemented strict, maximum security lab protocols across my entire research team and laboratory space, dual biometric facial and fingerprint verification for all lab and server access, rotating 2-minute security passcode updates for all research devices, a complete ban on all unsupervised lab entry for any personnel at any time, and mandatory real-time access logging for every single computer, server, and storage device in the facility. "These new security rules are strict and uncompromising," I explained firmly to my entire research team during our mandatory group meeting. "But lax laboratory security and unmonitored access allowed high-level national security espionage to happen directly under our roof for years. We will never allow that catastrophic mistake to happen again." 3 short days after implementing the new security protocols, fresh disaster struck the lab. Luke called my personal phone in a state of clear panic early in the afternoon, his voice shaky and urgent. "Professor Carter, 4 of our core Antarctic sediment core samples are missing from the secure climate-controlled storage vault." I raced immediately to the laboratory's secure storage room, my heart pounding heavily in my chest. The neatly organized metal shelving units held decades of priceless, irreplaceable field samples, carefully drilled, manually collected, and professionally preserved through years of grueling expeditions across harsh deserts, remote mountain ranges, open ocean waters, and frozen polar ice fields. For labeled Antarctic core sample tubes were completely gone, leaving empty, obvious gaps in the precise, ordered shelf arrangement. Their unique identification numbers were burned permanently into my memory. Ante 2025-03-07, Ante 2025-03-08, Ante 2025-03-14, Ante 2025-03-15. These 4 core samples were the exact specimens I had personally drilled and retrieved from the remote Antarctic ice sheet during the National Polar Expedition, preserving 300,000 years of undisturbed geological layered records and containing critical, entirely uncharted offshore rare earth reserve data, unique national resource intelligence no foreign entity had ever possessed or accessed before. Our last full vault inventory check was last Friday evening, Luke reported quickly, his voice still trembling with stress. All 4 core samples were fully present and accounted for in their designated positions. The entire lab was officially closed all weekend long, with no scheduled personnel access or official entry records on file. We immediately pulled and reviewed all campus security camera footage covering the laboratory hallway and storage room entrance. The cameras recorded clear, uninterrupted footage until midnight on Friday, at which point a pre-scheduled campus power maintenance outage cut all non-essential building power for exactly 30 minutes. During that precise half-hour window, all security cameras, lab access tracking logs, and motion sensor alarms were fully offline and non-functional, no digital records, no visual witnesses, no traceable evidence of any unauthorized entry or activity. There are no coincidences in this timing, I said quietly, staring fixedly at the blank gap in the security timeline. They knew the exact campus maintenance schedule weeks in advance. They planned this theft with perfect, meticulous precision.